Meritocracy has always been the bedrock of society, Chinese society, especially in the last 40 years. There's an argument to be made that there's somewhat of an erosion of meritocracy, which I find to be very frustrating and a big challenge to China. But still, until very recently, if you look at the surveys, the expectations of the young is still pretty rosy in China. Big contrast to the younger generation around the world. It was only during the pandemic where many of the university students felt extremely frustrated. I think that some of that sentiment has changed, but there is not the sense that the system isn't working for them. It's whether the economy can recover enough, that there will be confidence, that there will be jobs. And yes, there's a greater frustration with the circumstances, but these young people look at what's happening outside of China. They look and they are not inspired. They look at what's happening with democracies, what's happening with the random police shootings in the US, or the democracies that have been transposed onto foreign soil in various parts of the world. They look at the chaos in Hong Kong. They're not inspired. They don't think that there's an alternative of a better model, and that shows in the surveys. In surveys, they ask the younger generation whether China would be suited for a different and alternative model, and the majority of them do not believe so.
The Chinese culture is incredibly rich. But what's very important to understand about China's culture is over its 5,000 years of evolution, it has been the recipient of many different cultures. It's all about non-duality. It's all about the combination of yin and yang. It's all about people and nature and universality. These ideas are cutting edge in the West right now. That wisdom, that knowledge is in the DNA. It's something that was programmed in centuries and centuries and centuries ago. It's not coming from YouTube, it's not coming from Twitter, it's not coming from Facebook, it's not coming from any of those things. And so I think it's really important to recognize the value of China's culture. We're talking about environmental protection. We're talking about eliminating gaps between rich and poor. We're talking about trying to create harmonious society, about preventing conflict rather than dealing with it after it's happened. These are core concepts which are part of an Asian philosophy.
Nobody checks it. Nobody checks it.
In the 1980s, we lived on rationed food and cooked from communal kitchens, and even 11 square meter apartments were considered a luxury. And I remember reading poems with my father under candlelight, 3 nights of blackouts every week in Beijing. Fast forward, now my classmates have, houses and computers and cars, and they've seen everything. It's a big transformation. But for me personally, to have come to the West when I was a teenager and to see that the first thing they asked me was just about, the political issues around China. But then a few years later in college, people were learning Chinese. They were going to China, for American students, by the way, to seek jobs, to seek opportunities. All of that within 10, 15 years, an enormous, amazing transformation. We have to understand that China going forward is going to be shaped and determined by a completely different generation from the generation of my parents. More prosperous, confident, grew up in relative prosperity compared to my parents' generation, who have gone through physical and psychological hardship. They're invariably risk-averse. The new generation consumes. My parents' generation save for a rainy day, and that has come to become the defining feature of the Chinese economy. But all of that is about to change with the arrival of new generation. generation. The new generation has also forgotten some of that memories of the Cultural Revolution, of the Great Famine, and they look at the world with more open and clear-eyed views. Even they care about social issues like the environment and animal wildlife, which is all progress. So we're about to see a new playbook powered by a new generation with a different outlook, and I would say with more values that converge with the younger generation around the world. So they are a positive force for China.